How was your experience different than where you grew up in terms of your disability?
I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is in the South. And Arkansas is, uh, right now, I live in San Francisco. So the Bay Area, is the birthplace of like the disability rights movement. You got over there at Berkeley, and you have the Ed Roberts campus. You have awareness and support for disability, um, in ways that I didn't see growing up. Yes, the ADA had been passed. What the ADA was passed when I was a teenager, um, and that they already had like that 504 was there before I was born or whatever. So I grew up with schools being able to be accessible, but I didn't have I didn't grow up with the education and thinking around how access is important to living independently in the community. um Even though it you know I was reared in a culture of people like, yeah, we can help or whatever, but it wasn't until I worked with people with disabilities, because I worked with, when I was in college, I worked as a personal care assistant for another college student. I did it so I could get the room by myself, and also it was a job on campus, and I didn't have a car, and it paid good money. But it that that experience, that was me going to Tennessee, and that experience helped me open up to, oh, whoa, access is, people need access beyond being able to get into school. Access is important to get into everywhere, but not just that, but not just public places. I'm like, but also our homes. And that was how, I it opened up for me. It wasn't until I moved to other places than where I grew up that I learned things about like visitability into homes, zero entrance, um, about universal design, and access. I didn't learn any of those things until after I left Arkansas. And also, but the attitudes were just very different, I guess. I felt like where I grew up, a lot of the attitudes towards inclusion or something, a lot of it was like based on Christianity or being nice or whatever, versus it being a civil right. And that's a different attitude, and that's a different experience.
Did you ever have any moments where you weren't getting the accommodations you needed?
First off, when I didn't have like medication, because, well, okay, like I said, I got diagnosed as a teenager, um, but and I was in college though, and I didn't have health insurance. That student health insurance that they give you on campus, they're not going to give me Ritalin or or Vyvanse or any of those things like I have now. They did no Adderall for me, so I couldn't. So yeah, I had a diagnosis, but I didn't have the support and help. I didn't have. I didn't have. I wasn't signed up like with the Student Office of Disabilities. I didn't have any of that academic support. Also, depression. I remember going to my professor and saying, hey, I had depression and I'm having issues, and this is why I'm not coming to class, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, I need something from your doctor or something like that. Well, didn't have a doctor because didn't have health insurance. So it was, so yeah, I didn't get those accommodations. And so what led to me flunking those a couple of classes, or having to withdraw, and having to retake things. But hey, I eventually graduated, but I would have graduated. I think if I had had the accommodations I needed earlier, I can see where I feel like my academic journey would have been very different. Abroad, no. My experiences, but that was because by that time I knew to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be upfront about the accommodations that I needed. Only one time have I had, that it wasn't during work, it was as a visitor. Japan really did not like my little lightweight, little seated scooter. I had a travel scoot, and they hadn't seen that. And they thought it just looked like I guess like a little motorcycle, or like something for fun, or that people use as a transport. And I'm like, no, this is for disability. This is for, I was like, it's like a power, it's not like the big, heavy, bulky one. I was like, this is a lightweight one, and he was just like, no, he did, because we also had a language barrier. So I didn't have, so I did not get, so we had to take the thing apart, and because they wouldn't let us take it on the bullet train. That was it. Yes. So not being able to take, and I didn't have, so I'm sitting here trying to hold on to my husband. We have my scooter in bits. It's, yeah. So that is the thing. And so, that's something I hadn't thought about until I went to Japan, that not everybody looks at all durable medical equipment the same. That, what's available in one country is not available in another country, so, or not yet, or whatever. And that was when I went to Japan. That was 2018. Yeah, I went to a lot of places that year. But yeah, and so that was when I didn't get that accommodation. And also another time, finding access to getting, like, going up the stairs, like finding the person, like if you're in a train station and you have these stairs where they have those things where you get on a lift, like, and that lifts you up the stairs. A lot of other countries have that. And I've noticed that in their, like, subway train systems, because I guess they were built before, that legislation was enacted. And so as an accommodation, they have one of those platforms, but you need to have an engineer or whatever to operate that platform for you. They won't let you do it yourself. And sometimes those, like in Japan, this one dude had quite an attitude, because he was like, you can't just walk up there. No, motherfucker. I mean, no, this is why I asked you to help me. So, and so, yeah, that was, that was something. And so that was where I didn't get but I did get the accommodation, but it didn't feel good. I'll put it that way. They weren't happy about it. Mm-hmm. And it was treated as it was a burden. And no.
Did you learn anything about your disability while you were abroad?
Yes. One thing was very practical. I had a brand new walker that I had, and I had just ordered it off of Amazon, just on the reviews and stuff. And it was a drive walker. It was really great. When I was in Germany, someone taught me about how to use the brakes on it. And but this other thing was a stopper on it. I didn't know that. and that was because it came in the box, and I'm sure it has some directions, but I'm like, okay, I opened this walker. I knew that if I held it, it got break. She was like, no, what you do is you pull this down, and it'll just stay there. I went, what? So, yeah, I got to learn how to use my equipment. As far as what else did I learn about my disability? I learned that people have different attitudes, I guess, about how your disability is viewed or treated. I learned that I don't know, I guess I learned that some people were more. I'm trying to think as far as what did I learn specifically about my disability. I found that in the UK, they were much more open and understanding about depression and mental health. And like the average person was more aware, and it was not, and it wasn't seen as something shameful. I heard more because I was, like I would at the time, I used to be married to an English guy, so I would go to England, a couple of times a year. And so I got to experience like the attitudes and support towards depression and mental health things. I saw, to me, I thought that there was more support for depression, and particularly me being a Black woman, because here, in America, Black women, mental illness, where, in communities, sometimes in community, taught like, just pray about it, give it to God, that sort of thing. That was not what I was hearing in the UK, which was awesome. And I know some of that also, it's just like cultural, and a lot of it, and some of it also was economic, and that sort of thing. But they have nationalized healthcare. So when you have a nationalized healthcare where you see, just having access to healthcare is something that everybody has, whereas in America, it's not the same thing. I learned that yes, disability can be supported, and it can be talked about, and it can have awareness about it, and people can know about it nationally, and it can be taught. Like even kids, they know about mental health. They know they can call this in England the Samaritans line. We don't have, I mean, you have to go and research or whatever. We have suicide hotlines and stuff like that, or warn lines, or some things, but it's not like just one. I think there might be, but like a nationalized type number where you just call anywhere, like in England, anywhere in the country, you dial like whatever, the same number for the Samaritans, and the Samaritans, will get you connected. So I did learn that there are different attitudes towards disability, but like particularly mental health. Mental health and mental support is different in different countries. So I learned that.